If you're in B2B, SaaS, or consulting, and you sell things north of 25K annual contract value, if you sell expensive, solid solutions, then this is for you. So I want to break down why your company sucks at marketing. But no, really, what we're going to talk about is why do most marketing initiatives fail? Where are these like critical bottlenecks and key failure modes that I see preventing really great companies with great solutions from being able to scale their customer acquisition? So I'm going to break down the most common failure modes, why great companies, not beginners, but why great companies fail to scale, and I'll show you what you can do about it. We're going to jump into Loom right now. All right, so what causes most businesses to fail? What causes them to fail to scale past 2 million ARR? What causes them to fail to scale past just relationship selling? The first thing we need to look at is what is the order of operations for selling, for growing the business? It's almost always what I would call back to front. What we want to do is look at the actual market, and here's the whole market, and we're just going to zoom way in on the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on this part, and it's like a call out box. Okay, so this is the top of the market, and what you find is within this market, there's different little zones. So there's a lot of ways to break up this market. But the easiest sales and where most people start is with relationships. So that means that they are starting here and they're starting with relationship. So this means relationship driven selling. This means you're outreaching to people that are connected to you. If you have a good reputation, both in person and online, this is you can lean on that and people that you know to make introductions. And this is really the easiest way to get started. Most B2B companies start with relationships, and that's fine. And when let's say you add salespeople, what you're doing, what most AEs and BDRs are doing is they're going out there and they're building relationships. They're going out there and trying to find more relationships that they can form, and they're doing relationship driven sales. They're not trying to sell to strangers. And relationships are so powerful that they allow you to sell more difficult things. So if there's a hole in your offer, if your offer is a little bit weak, you can counter that by just selling to people that know you and they trust you already. So even though the offer isn't perfect, isn't as good as it could be, they trust you. So they know you're going to make it right, regardless if they're not sure about certain elements. So relationship selling is fantastic. Nothing wrong with it. And it does help you counter for these different potential holes in your offer. And then what most people do next after relationship-driven sales is they sell to solution-aware people or the most aware. So I'm just let's call this solution/most aware. Okay, solution/most aware. So what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, a lot of companies, especially in B2B SaaS, you might start buying Google ads, or you might start doing SEO. And you're looking for keywords of people with high intent. You're looking for people that they're motivated. If you're out there Googling something and you're like, how do I do this thing? Or if we're talking about AI search, you're searching, right? You're like, how do I solve my problem? What's the best way to solve this problem? What's the best software for this issue? Or, what companies, what teams, consultants can help me with a specific issue? Whatever it is, if a prospect is doing this, they're so motivated. They're incredibly motivated. So they're easier to sell. And a lot of companies will map out the buyer's journey and they'll say, okay, hopefully we see that people download this paper and they read this and they engage with some media, and then they book a demo, or they book a sales call. So those are the next level. And then this is often where companies usually get stuck at one of these levels. And the thing is, they're limited. There's so many search volume. There's only so many people who are going to go through and educate themselves. And a lot of this is not the same as a relationship, but they're educating themselves. So they're becoming very informed about all the things out there, understanding the offer, understanding what you do. Okay. But how do you go beyond that? So going beyond that, actually where the market gets way bigger, and that would be up here. And that's what I would say, selling to strangers. There's way more strangers. And these strangers, I mean, I guess solution aware people are strangers as well, but these are like the most motivated of all of the strangers, right? So they're not exactly the same. They're very motivated strangers. So how do you just get other people that, you could definitely benefit from your software, from your business, from your high-end solution? You need to advertise to problem aware. And here is why it fails. Here's why it fails. These people are not going to respond to weak offers. If they're total strangers and they know they have a problem, if you interrupt them and tell them about your company and your mission and what you do and your complex software solution or your complex, custom solution, whatever it is, they're like, what? It's just it does not entice them. It's not, usually the company's built around what was working, things that worked with relationship sales. So the key here to selling to absolute strangers who are problem aware, to expanding your market, to just being able to bring in way more customers way faster and not being constrained by search volumes, by SEO, by AI SEO, by all your sales guys, is being able to sell to these people. And what do they need? They need a very good offer that's made for them. So usually, like high level, that looks like this. That looks like your whole company. Your company solution is complicated. And so what we do is we break off outcomes 1, 2, outcome 3. So we break off these outcomes. And just to make this clear, I'm going to color the company solution in yellow and blue because this is kind of what works for the relationships and the solution aware people. But these outcomes, individual outcomes could be sold to strangers if you make a specific stranger-friendly offer. And what that means is it has to be low risk. It has to be fixed time, which means you're going to get the outcome in a fixed certain amount of time. Not like, hey, we'll get you there one day. We're going to get you there in 30 days or whatever it is. It has to be lower commitment or price. That doesn't mean it has to be cheap, but it's hard to sell a total stranger with a short sales cycle. It's hard to say, hey, I have this $100,000 offer to fix this giant problem. That's not something you do for a stranger. So it's a lower price. So maybe it's something between like 5 and 50K, something where depending on the company size you're going after, it doesn't need CEO approval it's something that they can just buy from you. And this fixed outcome, like we know what we're getting. And oftentimes your consulting business or your SaaS actually solves a ton of problems. It's very complex. So you just break off one of them and you make a special offer. And if you design the unit economics correctly, you can run ads to it. So this is high level, like the gap. And it has nothing to do with buttons in a certain ads manager or what platform or anything. It's like this fundamental thing that is difficult because it's a big thinking difference. But so even if you're committed to doing this, you can still fail. So I'm going to really break down the different ways now very specifically. So this is just high level, how to do it, how to get to expanding the market. But what do I see? So I'm looking at, people I've seen fail and what was the cause? Number one would be low involvement. So if you're running this as a project in your company, depending on your company size, it should either be the CEO, CRO, CMO, they should be involved. And if they're thinking, hey, I could just totally outsource the creation of a cash machine that could double my business, I'll just outsource that. I don't even need to check in. I don't have time to meet these meetings. Low involvement on the calendar. If that's what's happening, the odds of this succeeding, regardless of if you do it internally, if you have the best people in the world, if there's a low executive involvement for this project, it's not going to work. and it doesn't make sense. It shouldn't work. You know what I mean? Like, it should not work that you can double your company, and not look at this. So that's number one. You should spend time on it if it's strategically important. The other one would be just low investment. And so this can work in different ways. So if you say like, man, I want to start running paid ads, what is the lowest cost marketing provider that can help me do this? Maybe I can get somebody on Fiverr or Upwork I've seen this. I've seen this in companies, and they're like, we're stuck scaling and we can't scale. I come in there to help them and they say, well, we have this guy, they're offshore. They're super cheap. It's fantastic. And they just have never gotten us results. And it's like, well, this is super high leverage skill. Don't outsource it to the Philippines or anywhere in the world for a very low price. Go get somebody who's proven they've done it before. for and pay them. That's what you should do. Or bring someone on and get them the right training. Whatever you do, there's a certain minimum investment to do strategically important things. It doesn't matter if we're talking about marketing or any company project. If you underinvest, you can just guarantee that you keep everyone busy, but they're never going to succeed. I mean, it happens in big companies as well. If you launch a big initiative, but you don't give the funds to see it through, it doesn't work. So that's the other one. So low involvement, the way you can do this is your calendar, right? So making sure you have calendar time. Low investment is to be realistic, take an adult decision about what is this worth? What's your cash flow position? Is it the correct year to invest in this or not? And if it isn't, when and how are you going to get to the right cash flow level? What we find is, for most B2B companies, something like $5,000 a month in ad spend should be enough to test your way through to sorting out your funnel and then being able to use the proceeds to scale beyond that. And you need staff and something. So if you don't have an extra like 5 to 10K in cash flow, somehow you shouldn't, that doesn't make sense, first of all, or you should be doing something else like outbound and working here to scale this up. So just doing more of this until you get to the point where you have the cash to at least set this up. And it could be more, depends on how aggressive you are, but that's just high level. Okay, and the other one is a sales gap. So this catches companies by surprise. So really common failure mode for anyone breaking into this is the sales team will say, the leads suck. This will happen. Why will they say that? They've only ever sold to their friends. So if these guys are golfing with the people that are buying from them, or it's through the industry and it's through events and you've already met them and all that, and you're selling through relationships, suddenly you're getting strangers and you're like, these strangers don't buy from me. And the real problem is the sales team doesn't have the skills to sell to strangers. They only know relationship, and they need an upgrade. They need an upskilling to be able to handle strangers and this offer. So sales skills. This catches people by surprise. This is a big reason why a lot of companies are, not successful when they pull in a marketing partner. Marketing partner, even if they deliver everything, no one can sell to the strangers, and this can catch you by surprise. So those are the three main areas that I see that can cause marketing to fail. So actually there's four. There's the offer. Number one, the actually most important one here is the offer. So you need to make an offer that makes sense to the people that you want to scale, and it's almost never the same offer that got your company to this point. So it's sort of one of these cases of what got you here won't get you there. You need a different offer that makes sense to strangers. It doesn't mean you have to reinvent your whole business. You just have to re-dig a little bit what your initial front-end offer is. And then all the money, all the big revenue comes from the second offer, which is so common, right? You land and expand, build a relationship. Then, after you work with them, then you can sell them the higher end thing through your normal meets, right? The other issue I see is low executive or sponsor involvement. So that means the CEO, let's say it's $1 million company, is probably the CEO. If you're 5 million plus or so, it could be a CRO at that point, but they are just not there. So if they're not showing up, or they don't have the time made on their calendar, they're too busy fighting fires. Like if your operations is a giant nightmare, it can be difficult to launch a new project regardless of what it is, right? The other one is you don't have the cash flow to do this correctly. So let's make this 5 to 15. It really depends on where you're at. So you just don't have the money to do it properly. And so you can kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of half-ass it and just never get there, and you waste way more money than if you had never tried. So half measures. And, in my experience, I ran some moonshot projects for publicly traded companies, like reporting to CEO and the senior board of directors. And we had to invent new technology, roll it out around the world, then launch products, and they had to make money. And there was no question like, let's see if it works. We're going to do a little test. It was like, no, we're doing it. There's no question. So there's a kind of an attitude here, like, are you doing this 100%? Like every other company beyond this has figured it out. Are you going to test it and see if marketing works for you? Maybe marketing just doesn't work for you. If you have that attitude, you'll underinvest and kind of guarantee failure. So you have to say, look, I'm going to make this work, and I have the cash flow to do it. Okay, and then you have to take care of your sales team. And it could be, if you're a smaller company, it could be a surprise for you. If you are the CEO and founder-led sales, just getting a little bit of upskilling around selling to strangers and how you position the offer. Or if you have a team, if you're beyond that 1 million mark where you typically founders get out of the sales, then okay, let's make sure we give the sales guys a hand and get them prepared to be able to make these deals, because it's a little different than relationships. So those are the ways to counter this. Hopefully this is helpful. If you are a company, you're somewhere between 2 and 10 million, and you would like help really expanding and growing this year, shoot me a line. I'd love to help you. And hopefully this is helpful. All right. Cheers.